Leaders, Mahesh.
And
Beautiful.
you are the bridge between the two.
It looks like. Thank you. I think we have just gone live, and it takes a while for our audience to come because they get to see on their phones or on their laptops and desktops. So this is the time to say some welcome notes, possibly repeatedly, just to make sure that we don't say the most important things at the very beginning. So, my dear friends, yeah, numbers going up. So far, 9 people showed up, but then it's increasing. I'll later, I'll be able to tell you from time to time. So, my friends from Bangladesh or anywhere in the world, I would like to welcome you to this webinar, whose title is Learning and Development in Turbulent Times. I'm lucky that two of my favorite people, two of my favorite professionals, one from India and the other Hyderabad, India, another from and the other professional, and the lady from, of course, Dubai, UAE, with international, both excellent background, and I've been interacting with them, especially Mahesh Sharma, who I will properly introduce later, of course, and Deepshika Mitra too. I met Mahesh long time back, right? It's been 2 years or so, or at least 1 year, Mahesh, that we interacted and we came to know. And it's my good fortune that I recently came across a wonderful professional personality who, among many things, was in Bangladesh, actually. Mahesh, I couldn't bring you yet, but she served Bangladesh's best FMCG MNC. Guess what? Unilever. The Unilever that where Deepshika Mitra worked. So before I introduce you properly, allow me a few minutes, maybe 5-7 minutes. Already 31 of us are live here, I can see. Many messages are coming from individuals. So I'll go to a bit of a PowerPoint to talk about the organizing team or the organization. Futureleaders is the organization which is offering this webinar, and our strategic partner is Bold. So allow me a few seconds to go to some PowerPoints to help us get it through. There you go. Right. I hope it is clearly seen. Supposed to. So, as you can see now, our topic, of course, is learning and developing in turbulent times. And it's first we need to talk about quickly about future leaders. We said that we inspire actual and actualize potential. We inspire to actualize potential. All of us have huge potential. Very old thing to say, but a true thing anyway. So how do you do it is another question, through training, through consulting, through facilitation, coaching, and we have research program as well. So we say that in Bangladesh context, because I was a teacher turned university teacher turned facilitator trainer, we are arguably the #1 leadership and soft skills training firm in Bangladesh today. And I'm glad that many, I will tell you, I'm so lucky that when I started, nobody started with this profile. And among Bangladeshis, we only used to have people like yourself, which is not a bad thing, because you would bring new experiences. But we needed homegrown consultants, trainers, and facilitators, and there are many now. So that's who I am. Now, we have served in the last 15 years many clients. These are some MNCs and joint ventures in many different sectors, in telecom, in RMG sector we call ready-made garments, in working with IFC, World Bank, DHL, Linde, list is long, Samsung, and there are some national companies that my audience would know. So Futureleaders has served. This is their only partial clients list, and then there are some also national group and actually some non-profits. I should say, its title should be non-profits. Yeah, non-profit companies and UN agencies and so on. And finally, also with the government. With this, there's another government was added. I still go to Afghanistan. I have another year of contract left, so that's what remains. From the army to police to ICT division. I know Mahesh is a veteran Air Force person. Probably he was happy to see I work with defense, personnel in Bangladesh as well in terms of management side. Don't assume that I taught anything else or I shared any other best practices. Some of our foreign partners are New Zealand-based Inspire Group and Australia-based Australian Academy of Business Leadership, but most work is done through, Aon. Aon must be familiar with any HR people would know Aon certification is great. We represent the Bangladesh certification side, and also BYLD, some global programs they have. Now, I don't want to say much about me, but if anybody is new, I want you to know that I have more than 25 years of experience in teaching, training, facilitation, consulting. I trained 100,000 people, actually more than that, and 350 plus clients. And I'm equally adept in private sector, nonprofit, and government. I don't know, the experience does it, the age does it, the confidence does it. I was lucky that I studied in, 4 different countries, of course, Bangladesh, Japan, Norway, and then US. Even by the time I was 27, I came back, taught at North-South University, and then after 7 years of teaching, I launched my business. But our strategic partner, of course, I conducted training programs in, as I said, Afghanistan, USA, UK, Denmark, Malaysia, India, Nepal, and many more other countries will be in future. So here is bold logo. You can see we are the Bangladesh Organization for Learning and Development, a non-profit. It is the premier and the only organization of its kind which caters to the needs of trainers, L&D professionals, and so on. Today, I take this opportunity to invite those who are watching, and then I will go to the introduction of our resource persons. There are 7 benefits of Bold membership, so I would like you to seriously think about it. And those who registered, I will send them our links to the Bold membership. But those who have not, please go to Futureleaders page, register, and leave your email there, and I can reach you there. The first benefit quickly is we'll have many face-to-face as well as group coaching for your career development. So there is a one-on-one coaching from and that's free, of course. This in itself, it has huge value. I just don't want to mention the money figures. And then we have every month there will be free attendance to exclusive monthly personal and professional development webinars like this one. But this one is still not exclusive for Bold, but monthly there will be one for Bold members only. So that's amazing. Then comes networking with other members, of course, for advice, guidance, employability, directions, and so on. Members get together. We have online now, but in future offline as well. So, and then there will be videos, articles, and thought leadership pieces, white papers of many different organizations with due credits given to them. We share with our members so that they grow, they develop. So free access to those links and so on. And of course, discount courses. There are 7, so I'm finishing, don't worry. So you'll get discount. Finally, I need to tell Bold is a government registered organization established by highly qualified board members. I'm one of them, so I'm talking about myself being highly qualified. Okay, I leave it to you. And hence, its members adds value in personal branding. So if you're part of it, this is like amazing. So my friends, this is if you go to bold.org.bd, you'll find a membership area. It's very simple. You give 7 information, quick information like your name, your date of birth, and so on. You attach your CV and send to us. It's that simple. So, and then if you're qualified, minimum qualification, of course, is bachelor's degree or student of bachelor's if you want to become a student member. And there are fellows, professional members, and so on, depending on your qualification. And an invoice will go to you like this, for example, automatically. And you can pay from anywhere in the world. And like there's a Malaysian chapter happening. And another gentleman is looking into the Indian chapter. So we are growing like anything. So having said that, it's time I talk about Mahesh and Deepshika. So please bear with me. It's a long conversation, I know, but and then I'll go to the questions. But perhaps I'll quickly go ahead. So Mahesh Sharma has diverse exposure to operations, HRM, and leadership development for more than 3 decades in highly demanding environment. Even from designation for his roles, you can see why he says highly demanding. Former, Air Force veteran, corporate leader, learning and organizational development specialist, and in different sectors he worked in different situations, including crisis management. So worked with cross-functional, cross-cultural teams on projects of national and international importance, distinguished service in India and the Air Force in various roles. Of course, as you can see, operations and administration, strategy, people management, crisis management, and project management training and talent development. Corporate stints with pharma companies like Dr. Reddy's, Laurus Labs, Mylan in learning and development. And then, of course, he's a certified coach and experienced mentor. Finally, I share something with him, which is we both got recognized by World HRD Congress, citation as most influential HR leaders in India, and also adjudged top 100 HR mind. That's no mean feat. So with that, I thank Mahesh Sharma for being with us. But before I go into the question, let me take this couple of minutes to finally, introduce Deepshika Mitra, because I think these introductions are important, because who are you going to listen to? What background do they have? What experiences do they have? So that you know that talking from solid experience and background that give them the credibility. So here it goes. Deepshika is deeply fascinated by what makes people flourish. I love this line. People and their potential are her passions. Okay, so is Futureleaders. Deepshika has completed her master's in human resources from Tata Institute of Social Sciences. Anybody who knows Tata Institute would know. I see, good. She's an ICF certified coach. The world's #1 authority in certifying is ICF, International Coaching or Coach Federation. So congratulations. And she's certified emotional intelligence practitioner, MBTI practitioner. Her body of work in the learning domain stretches across many business sectors in India, Australia, Middle East, perfect, multiple countries, and getting things done there, allowing her to draw on the broad experience to help clients gain new insights to their business situations and issues, of course. After an illustrious corporate career spanning 13 years, where Deepshika led talent and learning teams in organizations such as Lehman Brothers, AstraZeneca, Australian government, that's quite a stint, I would say, and Rivoli Group, Deepshika made the career transition to working as a consultant and an executive coach late last year. This is what happened to me also quite some time back. So her clients now include Unilever, as I told you, Pernod Ricard, Ojan Coca-Cola Beverages Company, Hershey's, LTI, L&T Infotech, LTI, Cipla Health, District 1, to name just a few. So enough time taken to share all these. If necessary, we will come back to any other slide. I know took quite a time. I didn't expect it would exceed 10 minutes, but it did, actually. I'm at 15 minutes now. So having said that, my first question that I want to start with, and perhaps I would go to Mahesh, because it's the organizations who set the pace sometimes, not necessarily, because as trainers, facilitators, we innovate. But something tells me, Mahesh, based on your experience, tell us first, when we say learning and development, I mean, I know it's not it's a new kind of a question, because I know when we say learning, we say that definition is there where it says relatively permanent change in behavior. Or I watched a video by one of my gurus. He said, no behavior change, no learning. So that's learning. And development is also called education. It's something that may not be required now, but let's say if somebody is trained or being exposed on decision making or problem solving, so those tools they can use in future, and the training being right now, learning being maybe to apply right now. So I want to start with both of you with this. What does learning and development in any way mean, so that our audience has a very clear idea? There are many non-technical professionals, not from our field. So what learning and development in an organization context means, that I would ask Mahesh, and then maybe quickly to Deepshika as well, from a trainer, from a resource person, consultant's point of view. Mahesh, off to you.
Yeah, so that question is very pertinent especially in today's environment, and I'm glad that you asked about learning and development in corporate or organizational context, because traditionally we come from schools and colleges, and then there is kind of a transformation when you move from campus to the corporate and the organizational structure. But where is the transformation happening and how it is happening is very, very important, to get into that mindset of learning and development. So when we say learning, like you mentioned about the definition, we all know learning per se is a change in behavior. But the change in behavior is not necessarily the end in itself. It's a means to an end. So when we talk of development, you're actually developing yourself to make an impact to the business. And I think that is very, very important, because you may learn so many things. You may change your behavior, but is it aligned to what you really want, where you want to make the impact in an organizational context? So
Absolutely.
To answer your question in brief, learning and development, I think in an organizational context, is a means to sustainability. Are you growing? Are you changing and adapting to the developing needs, or are you merely learning to survive? So I would make that distinction.
Sure, excellent. Thank you so much. Thank you. If I may ask Deepshika, just setting the context right now, and then quickly we'll jump into more pertinent questions like how learning and development is changing and what challenges organizations are facing. So yeah, you take on this learning and development.
Yeah, I think I completely second what Mahesh has said, and I'd just like to supplement it. If I think of learning and development, to me, it means growth. And it has to reflect the business priorities. So it can't be sitting under a different umbrella. It has to mirror where the business is going and how the workforce or the employees are upskilling themselves to support the business. There's some very interesting data that I was reading a few days back, which says 85% of jobs in 2030, we don't even know what those jobs are going to be like. So in that perspective, for a business to stay relevant, if it doesn't invest in learning and development, and if people themselves proactively don't invest in learning and development, they will stop growing and they will stop remaining relevant and sustainable. So that's my take.
Absolutely. No, I'm totally with you, because as you said, some they have not been invented yet. So it's such
Yeah.
continually evolving, and the behavior change that has happened already is not an indicator that this would remain for any longer. I think the current challenge of coronavirus pandemic, is a big case in point. I never organized or be a host on platforms like this. I used to be in the receiving end. People would invite me to speak, or even Zoom meetings. I didn't organize any. I'll be honest with you. Maybe that's what is with or different kind of experience. But now I can tell you, I can be one of the best in the industry because I spend a lot of time. That's the learning that I did. And in a Zoom, for example, all kinds of extra, shall I say, whether it's using the different rooms that people are assigned to, it's polling, it's using whiteboard. Okay, I don't want to say more. So the topic, the turbulent times, learning and development. So again, I can start with Mahesh and say that how is it changing? Let me see it. How has changed how the organization responded to this learning and development. I must tell you, it's easy to stop the budget. I mean, that's what I've heard and I've seen, that whenever there is a financial crunch, recruitment gets stopped. Okay, I understand. And then the training and development, training gets stopped. But, well, it's your take. How generally, how the organization you are in, if you're allowed to share, how has it changed for you and for the industry in India or rest of the world? Up to you. Oh, your microphone is unmuted, please.
Sorry. I have unmuted because there was some kind of an echo. So I put it on mute. Yeah. Because what happens is if I keep it on, your voice gets echoed on my mic. Yeah. So now I'm okay. You can mute your mic, then it'll be better. Yeah. Okay. So so what the question is very relevant, and let me take you back because it would be very erroneous to make a generalized statement. These are the times when you actually understand the kind of stamina an organization has. So I would say that there were different kind of organizations which reacted differently based on how well prepared they were to deal with the situation. Coming back from a defense background, there's a very beautiful quote we keep saying in armed forces. The more you train in peace, the less you bleed in war. Okay. So you would find, even in Bangladesh or any geography, you would find there are organizations which would struggle to respond to turbulent times. It was, a kind of a fad. Everybody would keep saying VUCA, VUCA, VUCA. And lo and behold, when VUCA happened, people didn't know what has hit them. I am surprised. Every expert used to keep talking about it. But yes, there were organizations which were slowly building their muscles. So, organizational development is like building a muscle. It takes time. So there were organizations which were struggling, and I would not squarely blame the organizations because there were certain sectors, for example, hospitality, which actually they had a bad luck because they really couldn't help. But yes, the sectors which really suffered, there were many amongst them who took this opportunity to learn. Now that is where the the importance of learning and development comes, because I would talk about the evolved organizations later, but let me talk about these. How agile, how nimble, how flexible were their learning and development or setups? Were they in the driver's seat or were they in the passenger seat? Did somebody in such an organization walk up to the CEO and said, "Sir, this is what we got to do now"? Or were the CEOs breathing down their backs and saying, "Hey, listen, we don't have trained manpower, do something about it. You failed me"? So there were organizations which were agile and nimble. They quickly, even before the CEO and the CXOs realized, even before the business realized, they were ready with the plan because they had able learning and development, talent development people, with them. But there were organizations, it's something like this. I'll give you a simple example. Think not from an HR perspective or learning and development perspective. I think whenever I take a decision on behalf of the CEO. I am in CEO's seat. And if you are the CEO of your house and you have problems where the revenue is not coming, what would you do? You would first try to reduce the flab because you don't need that extra, you want to conserve. So that is why in some sectors you found that people are leaving. But then you would retain your gold, which is skilled manpower. Or what you would do is you would go to the market because you're in panic and you would do panic buying. So there were organizations which are actually laying off people and picking up skilled manpower, because today industry 4.0, gone are those days of good words. You need people who are skilled. And like Deepshika mentioned, even McKinsey's report says, HR people have to really worry because in the next 5 to 10 years, 40% of the HR jobs are going to become redundant.
Okay.
Then coming to the evolved organizations, they were ready because they had the muscle. And their L&D setups were already, they had trained people, they had the talent pool, and they were able to support their organizations. And within them, there were organizations which were nimble and they were very agile. So they were able to adapt to this turbulent time. But, turbulent time is not the time when you would do a traditional learning. You would have to learn on the go. So do you have the technology, whether a chap who's traveling from his home to the organization or a chap who's working from home, does he know how to hold a meeting on Microsoft Teams? As basic as that. Or does he know how to use a platform? Has he been enabled to use a platform that he can learn on the go? Because by the time he reaches the office, he already knows what is the safety practice he has to adopt. Otherwise,
I will come back to you, Mahesh. You painted such a wonderful, very clear picture from the organization's perspective, because that's why I wanted to I wanted to invite both of you. Not that, Deepshika had a excellent corporate career, long career, and then she switched her. I met many bankers who were bankers and then became an entrepreneur. So the other side. So I think, Deepshika, you're in a unique position. You work. So now you probably can say both sides, but more, I want to hear from you. How would a training firm, a consulting firm would innovate and help the company to meet the challenges, or take the question from your point of view? Yeah, please.
Thank you. So, before I answer that question, I thought I would share with you a very interesting word, crisis. And whoever I'm speaking to, be it organizations, be it individuals, they talk about facing a crisis right now, an unforeseen crisis, because we are in a situation where it is VUCA on steroids, literally. And whenever we talk about the word crisis, it always has a very negative connotation to it. Like it's a disaster, it's a catastrophe. How do I recover from it? Now, the origin word of the word crisis is actually the Greek word crisis, which starts with K. So it's KRISIS. And what it meant in Greek language was, it was a turning point in a disease. So the actions of the patient and the doctor at that point of crisis determined whether the patient would survive or they would die. And I really love that analogy because it just changes your mindset completely. We are in a crisis, and that's beautiful because we are at a point of making a decision. It is a point of possibilities for us. And be it as an organization or be it as a training firm, or if you're a freelance trainer, whatever it is, You are in a crisis, which is wonderful because you are going to make certain choices at this moment, which is going to determine whether you're going to survive and thrive or whether you're going to, fade into oblivion. And I think from an L&D perspective, since I made the transition, a lot of face-to-face workshops got cancelled. And it looks like, it's going to be that way at least for a few months now, because one is people don't want to spend that money. Second is they don't feel safe coming in together and attending a course. And probably they don't even have that mindset right now. Now, what can you do to really, really think about how do you grow from this experience? And if you really look at the whole learning and development paradigm, in the last 20, 30 years, there has not been much innovation. So we've been doing more or less the same things with minor tweaks. But this pandemic has really, pushed us out in the ocean and said, revamp, change, think about content differently, think about audiences differently. We've embraced technology, like you mentioned, Quazi. We are collaborating across the globe. And we really, really cannot just have this, broad thing like, I'm a soft skills trainer or I'm a company which provides soft skill training. What is my unique value proposition and how am I pitching it to the current environment? I think that is what is really, really important at this point in time.
Sorry, my microphone was muted. So it's because you've seen both sides, and you could easily see you probably would have done the same when you were in such a situation. You wouldn't it wouldn't be your first priority. Even if there's a learning need, you wouldn't come face to face, as you said. Now, perhaps I would go to you first with another set of another kind of a question that, to me, then, what is the new normal way of, shall I say, creating an offering? What is the new normal way of developing talents? Because I don't need to argue that, as Mahesh has said, I mean, we need talents. We need skilled people. It's not about traditional, but the work eventually will need to get done. And for that, we would need talent. We need to develop in-house talent because it's not always easy to only hire talents and to prepare them. So how do you see this is redefined now? And how is industry, our L&D industry, who are serving the clients, how are we revisioning it? What is our value proposition to the companies, to the industry? How do you see it, Deepshika?
Okay, so with your permission, I am going to be sharing my screen.
Please
because
do.
I want to, spend a little time on the why. And are you able to view my screen?
You may have to go to the application one. There is one, when you share a screen, there are, in the middle, it says applications. Yes, probably now it should be there.
Are you able to see it?
Yes, we are able to see it. So and we can see you as well. So go ahead.
Okay, wonderful. So I'm sure a lot of our audiences, irrespective of which field they've been working in, are familiar with Maslow's hierarchy of needs, which is one of the monumental works on motivation. And if you look at the pre-COVID times, okay, I mean, this starts with physiological needs. So once your physiological needs are met, you move on to safety needs, love and belonging, self-esteem, and self-actualization. And for our audiences, you can always go back and read up more about this if you're not familiar. Now, as somebody who's spent the last decade and a half in learning and development across various geographies, I felt that many of the people and many of the conversations were anchored around esteem. So am I getting recognized? Is there a growth path? How am I upskilling myself? Those were the conversations we were having. And if you look at the CEO, the top leaders, they were hiring coaches to find out what is the purpose of their organization, what is the purpose of their work, which is anchored around self-actualization. What COVID-19 and its after effects on the economy has done is it's moved people to the lower rungs. If you look around, a lot of people are really struggling to meet their physiological needs at this point in time. A lot of people are worried about safety needs. So am I safe? Is my family safe? Do I have a job? How's the economy going to be impacted? And love and belonging. So suddenly you realize the impermanence of life and you want to protect your loved ones. You are organizing Zoom calls with people in different countries and you want to keep in touch with them. So it's very important for organizations as well as trainers to realize where we have to pitch our learning needs right now. If we are going to try to do the same things that we were doing earlier, it's not going to work. It's not going to be palatable. It's not going to be relevant. So when you say what is the value proposition, the things that I am hearing from clients is they want to focus on employee well-being. The leadership has changed, and right from rational decision making, they want to lead from authenticity and empathy. People are embracing the online medium. So how do you sell through a virtual medium? How do you negotiate through a virtual medium? So you need to have a pulse on what is required in the market. Something that's worked for the last 5 years may not be relevant now. And if we want to stick to that, then we are going to lose. So it's also difficult to have these forecasts like we used to, because we don't know how things are again going to change in a month. So to keep a firm ear to the ground, understand and quickly respond to what the world is asking for, I think that is going to help us create our value proposition. The second being, of course, the medium. And traditionally, if you look at organizations, about 70% of learning and development happened face-to-face. And 30% of it, which was more compliance, that happened online. Today, that ratio has changed. And you are going to have a significant part of the learning and development budget dedicated to virtual medium. And you're going to have very few. And, I've had clients come to me with a few requirements which they want to do face-to-face. Lesser number of people, more targeted, more skewed towards the senior level. So I see those two as, significant things which are going to dictate how we are able to create that value proposition.
Thank you. Thank you. You rightly said that on the one hand, we cannot, it's not business as usual. So there's no point on the continuity part. And early on, I think Mahesh so aptly said that some organizations were only listening to the idea of VUCA world, but not acting on them. And drawing on his experience as a defense person, he had this clever thing to say. What was it? The more you train in peace, the more you win in war. Okay, right. Of course.
Yeah,
of course.
Yeah. So yeah.
Absolutely. Now, maybe a similar question. So, as Deepshika has rightly said, both in terms of the delivery mechanism, as well as the way the way things are done, both have changed. Now, an organization like yours, or generally organizations, we can say they have then we can say they have, because of the pandemic, they even have redefined actually the same question, but redefined their. So there's a soul searching that how do we do both? I mean, we have to have learning and development, and yet, as Deepshika said, the traditional meaning business as usual is not working. But how do you make sure that only online or is virtual learning has its limitation and strength too, I understand. But what else organizations would look through, and how would they redefine their needs? Would you say internal colleagues would take up bigger roles now? I'm just my hunch. I mean, you're a coach. You coach in your organization. Are you going to be more busy? That's indirectly I'm hinting.
I think coach is in a position to learn more than he can actually teach. So, but coming to your question, I would take it from two different perspectives: that of the employee, and the other perspective is that of the organization. Today, the limitation is technology and our ability to exploit the technology. I'm not saying that person-to-person training is going to go out of fashion.
Okay.
People are already talking about Zoom fatigue. People are saying that because, like Mehrabian said, you have that the 55%, 38%, and 7% of your non-verbal, vocal, and verbal kind of a thing when you influence a person. So after all, when it comes to influencing, today when you're talking of Zoom, since you're only able to listen to that person, you're reduced to a zombie on a Zoom. So that kind of thing. What I'm trying to say is that everything has problems. A blended approach is always better. So an instructional-led training is not going to go out of way as long as it remains experiential. Is it that you are giving more than a knowledge, or are you giving an experience in terms of acting, working on projects, simulations, and stuff? But thinking from an employee's perspective, and especially during the turbulent times, what happens is the learning has to be incremental, because if you read a report by Bershin, it says that today an employee in a busy organization is not able to spend more than 23 minutes per week on learning, which means that the learning has to come to the employee in the flow of work. And today the technology permits it. So the thing is, are you in the digitization stage, or are you in digitalization stage, or are you going digital? Because incrementally you are getting network enabled, and technology you're exploiting to the hilt to overcome these difficulties. So it is ultimately the person who's able to use the technology. For an employee, am I getting learning at the point of work, at the time of my need, and as much as I need? Because I want micro bites, I want small nibbling ways, and somebody needs to nudge me. So it is very, very important that it is little by little, it is ongoing and incremental, and it also uses not LMS. We are already talking of learning experience platforms. It is a blended learning. You have videos, you have interactions, and even schools are doing it. So we have organizations. So coming from the organizational perspective, I talked about the employee, that he wants it in situ, in the flow of work. Organization should be enabled in terms of network and technology to provide that kind of a experience or the value proposition to the employee. Instructor-led training would remain, but that does not mean that we only have to be instructor-led. We must be able to use gamification, simulations, and it is possible online. Thank you.
Excellent.
I'd just like to add something,
Quazi.
And when this pandemic happened, obviously organizations were not prepared to deal with this eventuality. And there's an instinct or a temptation that whatever we were doing face to face, we just transmute that into an online medium through Zoom. And that has limited impact. And that's what leads to the Zoom fatigue, as Mahesh really pointed out. What I see in the future happening is more a self-directed, self-paced approach to learning, where the employee wants to have something like a learning experience platform. And it's almost like an Amazon or an eBay, where they can choose what is the medium they want to learn from. And it has to be a mix of virtual classes, case studies, self-study, peer learning, coaching, mentoring, all of that. So if you look at the requirements of the current generation, and if you look at, now the ease of technology that all of us are experiencing, people want to learn at their own time, own pace, and they want to have a number of options of how they want to learn. I think that's how it's going to be really redefined. What we are mostly doing now is whatever we were doing face to face, we are doing it through Zoom. And that has only limited applicability and impact.
Yeah. The interest of the learners, their availability of time. So we need to factor in those areas as well. Thank you. I think it's about time that we went to our audience. There had some of them had comments, some of the questions. If you allow me, then both of you can quickly respond to those questions and or comments. A friend of mine who's in the US, Munir Khan, had a comment. I share on the screen as well. I think it's a big comment, but still, let's see. It says, wonderful discussion. Crisis and emergency situation requires quick action and emergency recovery skills along with the specific job skills, both hard and soft. On the basis, learning and development should be focused on developing multidisciplinary knowledge and skills. So, yeah. So obviously, you would probably agree that this is not one track, but they have to develop both hard and soft skills, because this is when trust becomes also very important. This is when people's the amygdala activates, and there's a fight or flight mode starts.
Yeah.
Who am I? So both of you are very, very much. Yeah. So can you respond to that quickly?
Yeah, I think, Munir, you're absolutely right. And one of the opportunities that I see is now reskilling. And I'd like to give you the example of a large conglomerate here in the UAE, which had a number of employees working in its cinema division, so the movie hall division. And that was completely closed for 3 months. So nobody was going to the movies. And here you had these thousands of employees without work. The company didn't want to retrench them. It was doing very well in the supermarket retail segment. So it reskilled those employees to be able to gainfully employ them in their supermarket sector. So I think as we see the shifts in where the workforce demands are, there is a lot of opportunity for reskilling, and that's where learning and development teams will actively contribute.
Sure. Thank you. I might take another question. Kamran Rizwanul Hakim, he worked in Denmark for the most famous shipping company, and now he's a PMP and working as a consultant. I think this is how his question goes. You can read on your own. Yeah. So in other words, employees should be recognized if they have demonstrated learning. So even during this time, I know in performance appraisal, in development discussions, it comes up often. But the point is, even now, as Deepshika said before, the employee has his or her own preferences also. Learning when he or she needs to learn, which sounds good. But then, how can he incentivize? Any thoughts on this? I think that's what his point is. How can he create incentive to learn, so that it doesn't become push approach?
Yeah, I think Quazi, if you really look at, I'll give you an example of Novartis. For example, they are going big in terms of fundamentally curiosity, what they call curiosity and unbossing the organization. The two things, including the CEO himself, is driving this agenda. And their chief learning officer, Simon Brown, he's also behind a big force behind curiosity. Because as you know, curiosity quotient is also very important, and some people say it is more important than the intelligence, or more effective than the intelligence quotient, because curiosity and potential. Okay, so we hire employees not as robots. We hire them because they've got something to offer. In appreciating that curiosity and allowing them multi-dimensional experience, it is quite possible that in an organization, an employee is working somewhere, but he's interested in having a different kind of a role, or job crafting, as we call it. Are we able to rise to that, or are we still stuck in that kind of job description and all, and we are not able to craft the jobs? To give you an example, in one organization where they were struggling to design a wing of an aircraft, okay, one of the leading aircraft companies, now they were struggling for 2 years. One bright young man, he thought, let me just float this idea online. And he said, I only need $10,000. In 2 weeks' time, he was able to get 600 responses. And within no time, they were able to shortlist 10 best designs. And the best design which was awarded went to somebody from Malaysia who had no background of aircraft design. Our limitation today is to keep our windows and doors closed.
Big time.
Technology is an enabler. Are we using it as a tool? So multidisciplinary point which he has brought out, it is possible if you appreciate the curiosity in an employee, rather than saying, no, this is not your area. We should be able to identify such employee, keep our doors and windows open. Ports are to be closed in the computer for security risk, but ports of mind are to be kept open. And we should leverage that amongst the employees.
Absolutely. You brought in many issues. One is the curiosity is the thing. I mean, talk about intellectually, spiritually, and a formal, multinational. I think they ranked number 1 or something, Novartis in the world.
Yes.
Taken. They are leaving their bureaucracy and now thinking like that. That's a powerful example you shared. I think my audience is saying that is a very good example. That they don't want to limit themselves in the systems and process. Yes, processes should be there for compliance, for so many other things. Otherwise FDA would not approve that drug, for instance. But then, as you said, the human beings, and we hired for a reason. You are here as a family member for a reason, not just to pigeonhole you with certain job descriptions. Thank you for the example.
Unfortunately, especially in HR, I have noticed, process becomes the work. Process is not a mean.
Okay.
Do you understand? Mostly in HR, people start taking process as work itself, which is not true. Process is something which is a means to an end.
I almost don't want to use that term, but people want to save their ... I mean, they want to, okay, I've done the process. I followed this system, They forget.
But here is an example. Here is an example of Novartis I gave you, where they're using curiosity. Same HR,
Absolutely.
a different organization. But you allow people, every life which is born is motivated. You need to believe in people and allow them to experiment.
Absolutely. No, sounds so exciting. Now, to Deepshika, there is another question for you to begin with. A fresher. I think we don't have many freshers here, but someone saying, how much online course certificates matter in getting a job? He probably have amassed 30 of them, maybe 20 of them. I don't know. So his question is, do you have good news for him? Bad news? I don't know.
So Shahrir, thank you for that question, and I understand you're embarking on your very, very successful career. Now, online course certificates today actually are an opportunity, because you can sit down in the convenient comforts of your home and get a degree from Harvard or Stanford if you go in for the course. But the trick here is to understand which one is relevant and which one adds value. So I wouldn't say that all of them are great or all of them are rubbish. Before you invest, it's a good idea to spend a little bit of time researching on what is the course content, who is it being offered by, look at a few reviews. Nothing is a guarantee for a job. So it's not like if you do a number of online courses, you're going to get in. But obviously, if you do it from some good institutes, from some good instructors, then that adds value. It adds to your own growth, and it will definitely support you in your career. I hope that answers your question.
I'm sure it does, because I mean, one cannot take it for granted for the number of training, even physical training sessions, when are under question, when whether that learning has taken place, and in online or virtually, it goes one step further, as Mahesh said, to what extent they could get engaged and internalized the ideas, and then come the question of skill. If you allow me, I want to also go to for a couple of other questions. We are very close to the end. We have probably 5 minutes, but maybe maximum 10, because I might ask you to summarize some part of your discussions. Let me see. If you allow me a little bit time, yes. Right. It's a different kind of a question where I think this person has to go to office, whether it's lockdown or not, or at least pharmaceuticals company he works in. So that's, maybe Mahesh can answer that. Can you read it and then?
Yes, Quazi. It's about, he says that he works at pharma, so he has no chance to stay at home.
Right.
So he wants to know initiatives from you on how to tackle this situation, on what can I do. I think he's in a good position because he's in pharma, he's working with scientists. And scientists today are leading the campaign to fight COVID and find a solution through clinical trials and through vaccines and other measures. Some of the antivirals are also being used. So I think what I would suggest is that he has the knowledge available with him, the practices which are protective, which are safe for the organization. And these are broadly 4: social distancing, self-monitoring and screening, wearing face cover and mask, and sanitization and disinfecting the surfaces, which are commonly touched. So I think as long as you're able to protect, you don't have to be paranoid. And since he's in a pharma company, if he follows these 4 things and keep abreast of what the scientists are doing in his organization, I think he's safe. And for all you know, just it's a matter of time, because you've seen people showering photos on doctors and healthcare workers and all. I'm sure people around him would hold him in pride, because he's working in pharma and saving lives.
Okay, that's quite inspiring. And I think that part you handled well, saying that whether one should unnecessarily worry. If you maintain those 4 things, that who recommends, and rather one can feel you are doing the life purpose work. You can making part of the making a difference team. So why feel so bad? Dipshika would agree as well. We were lucky to say that we had 60 a live audience, but people coming and going. So, and there are so many views would be later on the thing. I think this would be kept on record. So I hope anybody who's interested would visit us. But I want to go to the closing with your 1 minute kind of comments, some directions about learning and development in these turbulent times, your suggestions perhaps for the audience, what they should do, how they should do it. And I don't know, I mean, I could share your emails if you want, because those who registered. So if they want to know more, they can reach out to you. Some represent some companies. If they want to discuss anything beyond just a webinar, I'm sure they're welcome to. because you represent certain strength, and even online, both of you are qualified to deliver programs and to guide and to coach. So I leave it to you and the audience, but if that materializes. So having said that, allow me, Deepshika, would you share your 1 minute of, shall I say, Hall of Fame talk? You're almost one of the most important persons here. We are listening to you. Yeah.
I think I would just go back to what I started this discussion with, which is treating this as an opportunity. Yes, we know it's a difficult time. We are all trying to figure it out. So nobody has the right answers. Every day is different. But when you shift your mindset and you treat the world as your oyster right now, you could be a learner, you could be a trainer, you could be an organization. But when you try to create light within the tunnel, rather than trying to see light at the end of the tunnel, that's going to make the journey more powerful and more impactful. So what are the opportunities that lie in front of you is what you should be focusing on, rather than what are the challenges that lie in front of you. So those are my closing thoughts. And thank you so much, Quazi, for making this opportunity available. Thanks a lot.
Oh, you already are familiar, at least in one major company in Bangladesh. But through this, I hope Bangladesh should know even more. Off to Mahesh, a friend of Bangladesh, I would say, for quite some time. Please.
Always. Yeah. So, very quickly, I would say a few tips. One is at an individual level. I think learning and teaching is the way. It begins from home. A lot of us were working from home, and a lot of us realized that their spouses, their children were dependent on them for many things. So I think to give an independence to someone is a good way to, begin teaching. And when you teach, you learn. So acquiring new skills, I think teaching is a good way of learning. When you start teaching someone, in the process, you learn. So make them independent, learn yourself, and learn in small ways, not what is relevant today, but see the trends read and see the trends where the world is going, and try to learn the skills which are going to be applicable tomorrow, because tomorrow is going to be a skilled world, without losing on human values, which is that of trust building, helping and collaboration, because collaboration is in. Even the traditional foes are collaborating today. From the organizational context, I would say that the learning and development should be in the seat of driver, not of a passenger. They should be able to be championed. They should be able to promote learning. They should be able to enable learning, exploiting the technology, so that they are like Deepshika also mentioned, they're able to use various tools customized for the people, so that even if somebody wants to have that versatility of having it anywhere on the go, in the flow of work, he can have it. And thirdly, supporting people, sustaining it by using LMS or LXP or simulations or gamifications. All these things would come handy. That is in a nutshell I would advise.
Thank you. Thanks to both of you. I don't know whether you saw or not. I could only share just a few of the comments. We don't have that time. Whether this is awesome and they learn new things. So they're not average audience. Many are bold members. They're passionate about learning and development. And so I'm really glad that the audience felt that way. When you spoke, when you shared from your experiences, they felt that they got why they were here. Even with webinars, there's a lot of competition at a given time. There are 40 or 50 of us Bangladeshis who do it, mind you. So I wish I had even bigger audience, but not necessarily that I would get, because equally qualified people would, do webinars. But I can guarantee that there were quality audience, and they had wonderful questions and comments, and they appreciated both of you profusely. That your insights were wonderful and great. Having said that, I don't want to take any more of your time, and I want to thank you Thank you very much. We'll keep on keeping in touch through social media and others. Who knows what other projects we may work together. With this note, we say goodbye. Thank you very much for.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for this opportunity. Thank you.
Same here.